Hello, everyone, and welcome to another RigER webinar. Today is the Thursday, November 5th, and we welcome everyone who is joining us today for a very interesting topic that we're going to be covering today, which is RigER database administration. We know that a lot of you who are our users have been asking for more information how we can better and more efficiently manage our access on the back end to the system to set up everything right. And that's one of the reasons we have decided to run this webinar for every one of you who are using RigER now on a daily basis and want to be a better user of it as an admin. So today's topic, as I've just mentioned, is going to be RigER administration, or how to be a super admin user rather of RigER. And the presenters of today's topics are listed right here on this slide. So many of you, again, who are, if you are a user of RigER, you already have spoken, heard from, and know these people. So today's presenters are Senor Nan, so our software consultant and project manager, Indra Kingrelite, so she is our support lead, and Gleb Kovitz, our VP of operations and head of the implementation. So these are the key experts for you to remember and be in touch with if you have any questions about how to use RigER in the most effective and efficient way. And some of the things that we're going to be talking today include the basic settings of the database. So we'll really go through in detail, as well as cover to the level that we need to explain to you how to set up as an admin the system on the back end. We'll talk about how to manage the users, as well as what does it mean to set up proper documentation, administration processes, and permissions. So it's a big question as well. So we'll talk also about the month closeout procedures and touch a little bit on the email notifications, because in admin you have a lot of sort of features and functions accessible to you, but not to every other user in the organization. So by the end of this session, you'll be pretty much empowered and almost a super user of the RigER system as an admin. Okay, so let's start and kickstart the whole thing going.
All right, thank you very much, Nikolai. Hello, everybody. My name is Gleb. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit more specific things about the RigER software usage. And as Nikolai mentioned already, we're going to talk about the administrator, database administrator functions and features that are available only to specific users of the software who are assigned with the admin role. Still, it's kind of technical, but at the same time, it's meaningful and very informative and useful for those who want to be the RigER administrator or who are the RigER administrator already and want to know more about how to manage the database from the higher level and from the most accessible rights. So let's first talk about the database settings, general settings of the database, which we usually use and set up when we do the implementation of the software to your company. So first of all, let's just talk about the first and very simple but yet important thing, how to access all the settings of your database. It's accessible in the settings menu, but this menu again is only visible to the RigER administrator role. So most of the users of the software will not see this menu. So just to be safe and not to mess up with the different settings for users. There are several sections or chapters in these settings that are assigned to different kind of functions or different purposes of managing the database settings. And we will be talking about every single section of it and every single function that is presented on that screen. But also in the recent edition of the RigER 7.7 version, we have added the administrator dashboard, which is available on the homepage where you start your software application. And if you are assigned with the admin role, you will see that menu or the dashboard. So you can just navigate to the last tab, admin, and you will see that. So again, it just a little bit replicates what we have seen previously, but also it gives you more information about your database health and database stats. how many documents you have, or how many storage you use for your external attachments, and you can analyze every session duration. You also are able to see what kind of document closing dates you have currently set up in the system, and we'll be talking that precisely a little bit later. Just yeah, keep staying with us today. We will be also talking about the business entity setup, default settings, and how you can analyze your licenses usage, the expiry dates of the licenses, or how you can add a new user right from that screen, and your statistics about the licenses and sessions usage throughout the period of time. So the first setting that we usually set up on our site when we do the implementation project with you, we set up the business entity. So that's basically the general information about your company. So you can assign a short or full name. You can also add a general phone, fax, and email that your customers can reach you out with. And this information will be shown on each print form that you present to your customers. So every print form that you generate in RigER and print out from the software will have this information. So just keep in mind that here you need to put the contact information that will be visible on the print forms. You can also set up emergency phone contact number and default shop that you dispatch your equipment from, or you assign people to, so that will be maybe a default shop, and a few fields about the comments in different documents like invoices or rental service agreements and purchase orders. So when you put these comments here on the business entity setup, they will be populated to all the print forms that you generate. So just keep in mind that that's kind of general comments that will be applicable to every single document. And you have also an opportunity to set up different addresses. So if your organization is distributed between multiple locations and you have multiple offices maybe or shops, so you can also enter this information here just to be aware of what kind of maybe mailboxes you need to use or street addresses you need to put to different documents. And you also can attach a file or multiple files to your business entity setup. So that may be your company registration forms or some kind of GST registration or PST or sales tax registration documents. It can be also some kind of general documents or government forms that are applicable to the whole business entity. Also, we're moving down, and here we have the default values for your database. So again, you will see the business entity name that you have previously set up. You can specify the country that you operate in, your main operation country, default currency, terms of payment. So there are multiple fields that can be set up. I don't want to go over each of these fields precisely because it will take longer, but you can anytime you can reference or you can refer to our article in our knowledge base, which will explain every of these fields usage and purpose of these fields. But one thing that I would like you to remember about these default settings screen is that you can find a link to your thin client, meaning to your RigER application that you can share with your peers or whoever starting using the RigER software. So you can copy that link, send it to them, and they will be able to download the application, install it to their computers, and start using that smoothly. So next tool that is available to the RigER admin is the import data tool. So within this tool, you can upload the data that you already have in different information systems like maybe QuickBooks, or you extract information from your CRM system, or you just have different kind of information in the Excel spreadsheets. So that tool gives you an ability to upload this data into the software And we have a kind of workflow that you have to follow in order to do that. So first of all, by opening this tool, you need to select the data type that you'd like to upload. And then we encourage you to download the template, a specific template in the Excel spreadsheet that is applicable to the database structure. And then you fill out, or you just add your data to this template without changing any fields or restructuring the file. And then you just save this file and upload to the system by clicking on the choose file, and then follow the steps that the system will prompt you. Also, we have a maintenance settings, but these are applicable only if the maintenance module is enabled in your system. In a few words, it's just the settings for your intervals when the equipment should be taken care of. For example, you define that after 95% of some kind of parameter, either it's a calendar day or it's some kind of operating hours, if that limit is reached, the system will show you a colorful square that or colorful box that will show you that you need to take care of this unit or pay attention to the status of this unit. And also there are some additional settings for the maintenance module that can be set up. Now, another interesting topic is the licenses, and it is also available for the RigER admin to see how many licenses are enabled in your configuration, how many licenses are used, both cloud and mobile licenses, and you see the expiry dates. The RigER admin is not able to change the expiry dates for both cloud and mobile licenses, but at least they can see where it is, and just to take precautious actions to not to overdo the expiry date and the statistics about the license usage. Another option that is available is the features list. So you already may know that RigER software is a very customizable and like modular system that is highly configurable by using different features. So we can enable or disable a feature in order to give users some kind of new user experience or visibility options. Sometimes by using the features, we enable a bigger portion of functionality for the configuration. But from the RigER admin standpoint, you may have seen these features already, and you can also see the detailed description of these features, so you have better understanding what this feature particularly does. And if this feature is not enabled in your system, we usually suggest you to communicate to us and just ask if we can use it or not, and if we use it, how we will be using that. Also, we have integration settings here for the RigER admin. So we have both QuickBooks or Sage integration settings presented here, and also for e-invoicing integration, meaning the connection of RigER software to the open invoice system and send invoices over there. But just in a few words, it's different kind of features can be enabled that here, and you have to specify the file database file path to which the RigER system will connect. And there are some other options. If you're interested more in this topic, you can look up for our specific webinar that we dedicated to the QuickBooks integration, so you can learn all these settings precisely in that webinar. And now let's switch gears to the users management, because that's a kind of a big one and a big portion of the whole database settings. And I'll pass the mic to Arsen, our product manager. Arsen, please.
Thank you, Gleb. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and let's talk user management, how the permissions of the user will affect the actual things he can do in the database. So First of all, let's move on to the next slide. And here we have categorized all the user roles that we have in RigER into 6 major categories. Obviously, first of all, the most powerful role would be the administration role, category and role. So the administrator will have full access to the database. He can set up, configure, troubleshoot everything in the database. And obviously, he's the one who's going to be overseeing all the actions in the database. So if a configurational or a settings change is required, the administrator role is going to be the only one that will be able to access the settings menu, as Gleb has already stated. The next major category is the sales roles. So we have 2 sales roles, and we will get into the actual roles in a few minutes. But in this category, the sales roles will actually work with all the sales documents, the quotes, rental agreements, contracts, sales invoices, sales shipments, etc., and will be accessing the new CRM module. The operations roles category, obviously a very important one, will deal with all the ticketing, all the dispatching, maintenance, repairs, inspections, assemblies, etc., and all that functions that we have incorporated in RigER. Next category would be the purchase roles. The purchase roles will be dealing obviously only with purchases and sub-rents, since the sub-rental module is a part of our purchases module and uses the purchase logic inside RigER. Next category, accounting roles. We have 2 accounting roles in the system, which will be dealing directly with invoices, and accounting roles actually have a really high level of access to RigER documents. So the access is not going to be limited just to the invoicing, because accountants often need to see the documents that have been used to generate those invoices. Last but not least, the HR and safety roles category. So these two roles in this category will be dealing with human resources documents and the safety documents. So let's move on to the next slide, which is going to be, as you have already seen a few minutes ago, the admin dashboard in RigER. This is basically the home screen of the admin user. So when he logs in, he will see this dashboard, and you can see that there are a lot of handy functions inside here that will allow you to directly access something that you need. So right there in the middle, under the admin tab, under the name, we have the shortcuts to user management functions. So we have the users list, we have active users, so you can see who's accessing the database at the exact moment. And we have the add new user shortcut. So let's go to the next slide and explore how are we going to add a new user to the database. Now, aside from this shortcut on the main screen on the dashboard, we also have the users catalog under the settings menu, which you can access manually. So inside that catalog, which is the backmost picture in this slide, you can click on the create button and start creating a new user. So you will need obviously to input some information there, the name, the email, the phone number, the position of that new user who's going to be added to the database. And the next major step is going to be assigning user roles to that particular user. Now we need to assign at least 1 role to a user, unless we just creating a fictional user. So we need to assign at least 1 role, so he will be able to access RigER database. And we will also need to either assign a password or leave the field blank, so the user can set his or her own password at the first login screen. All right, so yeah, this is the actual user roles that we have in the system right now. Overall, we have 14 roles. So the administrator, as already stated, the local god of the RigER platform that you will be using in your company. Then the sales roles, the salesperson and sales manager. So the main difference between the sales manager and the salesperson is that sales manager has access to all sales documents and CRM documents and has approving functions, while the salesperson will have access to only his or her own documents or the documents that have been assigned to that particular role. Next would be the operations roles, which are 4 roles: dispatcher, field tech, fleet manager, and operations manager. Now, I'm not going to be talking about all the details of these roles because that information is extensive and we can talk about it all day. But the main distinguishing factor is dispatcher would be the main actor in the operations roles. He will have access to most operational documents, meaning tickets, repair cards, inspections, maintenance, etc., etc. He will be the one to understand the resource availability, if need be, to transfer some maybe equipment from one yard to another yard, which is also a function of the fleet manager, by the way. And the main aspect here to note is that all these roles are going to be having access to their own functionality except the dispatcher. Now, operations manager will have mostly read-only access to all the operational documents, plus some other sales and accounting documents in the system, also safety. The field technician will be the role with the least permissions, having access to only his or her own tickets and repair cards and inspections and safety cards. Next, we are going to talk about the purchase roles. The purchase requester and purchase manager, very basic role as the purchase requester is. The only function of this role is to request a purchase order through a mobile application or through the database from the purchase manager. Now, the purchase manager on the other side will be able to generate purchase orders, bills of ladings, and obviously approve the purchase request generated by the requester. Accounting roles will be dealing with invoicing, generating purchase invoices, etc., generating rental, sales, etc. invoices, and will have access, as already I have stated, to all the documents that have been in the process of generating those invoices. Now, safety manager, a role that will be needed to assign, we will need to assign to, let's say, a dispatcher or another operational role for him to be able to deal with safety checklist, to create safety documents, etc. And the HR manager will be the HR role that will govern all the HR documents that we have in our HR module. Let's move on to the next slide and the exciting stuff, the functions matrix. Now, I want to emphasize the fact that aside from the user roles that we have in system, we also have functions. Functions are specific permission sets that can be assigned to a particular user to extend the limits of his capabilities in the system. And some functions are so some functions present an entity that if not enabled, that particular user will never be able to do something with some documents. For instance, if we are talking about item creation and we have not enabled the items, the first column, the items check mark for any of the roles listed there, or rather any of the users listed there, none of them will be able to create items in RigER. The same applies to clients, vendors, prices, tax manipulation, inspection templates, etc., etc. So again, functions are extensions to the current user role. They do not necessarily change the user role. They just add additional functionality to that particular user. Moving to the next slide, we will see the roles matrix, which is located in the functions matrix document. And you can see that we have two radio buttons at the top left corner, functions matrix and roles matrix. When you switch to roles matrix, you will see this screen. And this is basically a bulk manipulation of user roles for every single user that we have in the database. So if you need to change or add or remove some user permissions, user roles to many users at one time, you will be accessing this screen. Moving on to the next slide, we are going to talk about how to enable mobile access for your users. Now, for this, you will need to enter the actual user card, open the users menu and click on the users itself to open this particular single card. And inside that, we have the mobile tab. Now, I do want to emphasize that the mobile function will need to be enabled in the database and configured prior to this step. So let's assume it's already done and we need to enable the mobile access for a particular user. So what we need to do is we go into the mobile tab, we check the mobile user checkbox, and this action enables the ability for that particular user to start using the mobile application. Now we also have 3 default roles for the user to be assigned when using the mobile application. And again, this is dependent on the mobile applications themselves, because as many of you know, we have several different mobile applications. So in case of using the field application, the code name yellow app, we will assign the field technician role by default, and that user will be a field tech in the yellow app. Same applies to the sales, which is the gray app, and the dispatcher, which is the white app in our case. We can also set the default status of the rental service agreement after synchronizing with cloud. So this is not usually done, but if you would like to do that in your case, because this setting can trigger some notifications, you are able to just change this status information right here. And after synchronizing with the cloud, this default setting will apply to every single RSA. Let's move on to the next slide and talk about how we can actually monitor and manage our active users, the ones that are currently logged into our database. So under the settings menu, we have the active users setting, I would say. So when you click on it, a window opens and it lists all the users that are currently using the database with their corresponding application type, which might be the thin client or a mobile client, and their session number and session start time and date. So first, we can select multiple users here and send a message to those users. For example, we're sending Tom that we need him to log out of the systems for several minutes. So we select that particular user, click on send message, the window pops out, we write our text and click on send message. Next would be the end session function. Then the end session function would allow us to kick out the user from the database, basically. So what we do, again, we select the user, we click on the end session button, and all we see is a message that will pop up in the bottom of the screen saying that the user's session has been terminated. Let's talk about the security and access control in brief. And this is kind of a spoiler alert, because the security and access control and overall cybersecurity is a huge topic of discussion. And we have dedicated a separate webinar, and we are preparing to do that webinar next week. So a few of the topics that we will be discussing during that webinar is the why is it important to secure your information overall? How can a human factor how can affect the human factor all of the security and information access, etc. Why is it crucial for you and your organization to have a secure informational infrastructure? Why would you use strong passwords? Why would you change them frequently? What we actually have already implemented, or what we are planning to implement by the next release of RigER, that will have you to cover all the security aspects of data access, data protection, information integrity, the availability, etc. What international standards are there to govern all this information security and information access policies and plans, etc., such as like ISO 27001 series, the SOC type 2, etc., etc. We can also talk about what best practices you can employ to increase the overall information security in your organization. And by information security, we do not actually mean only the computer information security, because information is way more distributed than over the computer files. So you can have paper copies, you can have contracts, etc., etc. These are all topics and some of the topics that we will be discussing during our next webinar next week.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Arsen. It was very informative, very meaningful. And I just wanted to remind you that if you have some questions so far and you've come up with some questions, you can type them in. Don't keep them inside you. You can type them in the Q&A section of the Zoom control panel or just in the chat. So we will definitely cover these questions a little bit later. But now I just want to introduce you to Indra, our user support lead, and Indra is gonna talk about the documents administration. Indra, welcome.
Thank you, Gleb. Hello, everyone. So my name is Indra, and I'm user support lead here in RigER. So let's move further and deeper in database administration topic in RigER. And in the next slide, we can see what we will cover now. So we will talk about documents administration. So I would like you briefly to introduce with the administration possibilities, document administration possibilities and functionality in RigER. So let's start with the first one. It's deletion of the marked object. So first of all, what is an object in RigER? So any document, any item, any unit number, any record in RigER, we call it object. And sometimes it happens that you accidentally generate a duplicated document or a duplicated item or unit number, or sometimes you make a mistake and you need to fix it. And the only option, sometimes it happens that it can be only to mark for deletion the document or an item and just create a new one. So what's happened when you are marking for deletion object, an item or document in RigER? So first of all, this document is marked for deletion. It's not taking into account in any procedure, any record in RigER system, and it's hidden from the user. Just user cannot see initially when you mark a document for deletion, but if you want to see it, you can always click an icon highlighted in the screenshot on the slide, and you will see the full list of available active documents or items and marked for deletion ones. So time by time, every month, every 2 months, we recommend just to clean your RigER database and delete marked for deletion objects. So let's move to the next slide. And here under the settings menu, you have a delete marked objects functionality. And if you go there, there are 2 rules which should be met that you could delete mark for deletion objects in RigER. So first of all, you should be, as we call it, in single user mode. That means no other users should be connected in RigER at the moment when you want to delete marked for deletion objects. So we recommend to run this procedure better after working hours when nobody is working in RigER. Otherwise, you will get a message that this function cannot be run because a list of users are connected at the moment. And another very important rule is that the marked for deletion objects should not be related with any other documents, objects in RigER. That means if you have a duplicated unit number and you noticed it and you see that it's marked for deletion and you want to delete it, when you're running the deletion procedure, you will get a notification that sometimes you can get the notification that this unit number is already related with some documents or objects in RigER. That means it was used in some documents, it was added there, it was used in some jobs in RigER, and it prevents this object from permanent deletion from a RigER database. So in this case, you just need to analyze and work through the documents, maybe change the object with the correct one, or just decide maybe that whole document should be marked for deletion too, and just in this way remove the relationship between different objects that you could clean your database. So this procedure should be taken care very carefully, because if you will permanently delete some marked for deletion documents or items, unit numbers, and so on, it can't be restored. Of course, there is possibility to restore from the backup, but it will take time and resources to do this. So that's why this functionality is assigned only for the advanced RigER users who has an admin role in the user roles. So let's move further, and the next functionality, what can be accessed in admin's settings menu, is document posting. Another one very important and carefully when you use, you need to be very careful with this functionality, because this function allows you to repost or post not posted documents in RigER. So you need to make sure that you are selecting the correct settings in it when you run this procedure. Otherwise, you can post all the documents and there is no to see the logs, what was posted or not posted before. And let's move further to the next slide. Another one really used by our clients and very important in RigER is document closing dates. So what these closing dates are. So you can see here that there are 3 different documents closing dates, and each of them close, that means locks different type of documents in RigER. So for example, the general closing dates locks all documents and all records in RigER until that specific set date. So for example, if you set the general closing date as January 1st, 2020, that means all documents, all records generated in RigER before that date are locked from editing. So you can't change anything, and you cannot generate a new documents in the close period. So most of the accountants, most of the our clients, they're using this just to prevent from the accidental user document editing or changing. So just to prevent from the errors in RigER documents when these documents are already existing in the system and generated. The next closing date is RSA closing date. So you can notice that it's this date locks all the RSA documents in RigER. And we have rental ticket closing date, we have fill tickets closing date, and invoice closing date. So all these 4 types of closing dates locks different documents in RigER. Another very important closing date is a billing period closing date. So this specific date locks the billing period. That means if you set a billing period log date as January 1st, 2020, it means that you will not be allowed to generate invoices to bill the client for not billed, not invoiced dates before January 1st, 2020. So you need to make sure that all rental dates, all services are invoiced, charged, or billed before you locking these periods. Otherwise, it will be locked and you cannot go back and invoice them. So let's move further, and I would like to describe and show you one very important function and procedure. I would call this more procedure in RigER, is month closeout procedure. So to keep RigER database healthy, we recommend every single month to run this procedure, and I will explain what exactly it does in RigER database. So as you can see, you can find this under the settings menu and administration section, the close period. It calls in RigER close period. And when you run this procedure, it goes through 3 steps. So you are selecting the period what you want to close, and then you are checking 3 steps, 3 stages. So document sequence, inventory balances, and inventory quantities. So when all these 3 stages are with the green light, that means that there is no issues, there is no errors in document sequence in RigER, there is no negative balances in inventory balances or inventory quantities. The period get closed, and when period get closed, the general locking date is set in document closing settings window. So it's really important to keep your database healthy without negative balances, because it has a huge impact for your work when you want to dispatch some unit numbers, when you want to deliver for client some equipment, and system say that this equipment quantity is insufficient in specific locations, and you're getting like negative balances in the RigER. So time by time, you need to go through and check that your RigER database would be healthy. So let's move further, and here you can see more steps how this procedure works. So the first step, as I mentioned, is sequence. The first step is checking the document sequence. So for example, if you having inspections procedure in RigER, so after the equipment is returned from the job, the next step would be the inspection for this equipment. And sometimes it happened that the inspection card is missing, it was not generated or marked for deletion. That makes an error in the document sequence. So when you checking document sequence in month close procedure, RigER goes through all the documents for that particular period you selected in the beginning, and it checks if all the documents are in sequence. And if there are some issues, it will give you a list with the documents where it's an issue, and you can work and check what is missing, what is not incorrect, and so on. The next step is check the balances. So RigER checks if there is no negative balances in RigER. And the third one is check the quantity balances. So it checks if the quantity movement between different locations, different department shops in RigER are not generating the negative balances too. So when you run through all these 3 steps, that means that everything in relation to the documents and balances is correct in RigER without any issues, and you can close then this period. So this is very important step in RigER for every client. Just go through monthly. Maybe if you notice too many errors, just go weekly, but just make sure that you are keeping the healthy RigER database. So let's move further, and as I mentioned before, here you can see that when all 3 steps passed successfully, you click to close the period. The general closing date is set in document closing date, and that means that all documents are locked up to that date, and no new documents can be generated before that date, and all the documents existing in RigER database before that date cannot be changed or edited. Okay, so now let's move further and just let's go deeper with the details. As I mentioned, when you are running monthly closing procedure in RigER, sometimes it can happen that you find issues, errors in balances. So the main issue is a negative balance in RigER. And there are a lot of different causes who can cause the negative balance, but the main of few, the default ones are, so for example, some documents were accidentally marked for deletion and deleted from RigER database, or some documents were unposted. So when document is unposted, it gets a status as draft, and it's not taken into account in any report, in any equipment movement. So it may happen accidentally if user just clicked unpost the document, and it can cause a negative balance. The next possible cause may be that existing documents were modified. So for example, the item line was deleted from the document, the unit number was changed in the document. For example, you generated rental ticket to deliver equipment to client's location, and later you realized that you selected the wrong unit number, you changed it, but it's already, the changes are made backdated. So you need to keep attention when you're making some changes, just not to cause the negative balances in RigER. One more issue, what's happening, that some documents are missing in or are in the wrong sequence. For example, it's very important in RigER that all documents would go by date and time in sequence. And for example, if there is a unit with status for inspection, then the next step should be inspection card to check this equipment returned from client's location from the job. And if it's everything okay, then move equipment back to be available for the next dispatch, to move it to the status ready for rent. So all the sequence should be correct. And sometimes if you add in the document a not correct date, it may cause issues in document sequence. So you need to check that too. And many other reasons what may cause negative balances. And every single time when we are checking, when we are working, we need just to analyze the documents, analyze the situation, and found an issue and fix it in RigER. So if you could go back, please, to the slide below. Yes, one more thing what I would like to mention is that there are three main reports in RigER what should be used to catch the negative balances in RigER. So the administrators, who is mostly advanced RigER users, they have access to this reports to check and analyze the situations in documents and RigER. So under the setting menu, you have a balance control section, and there are three reports. So rental unit balance control, unit numbers control, and unit workflow control reports. These are the main reports to check and analyze situations and fix the negative balances in RigER. So let's move further. There are few more reports what may be used and may be useful for user when analyzing the negative balances in RigER. So one of the reports is the location report. So you can see the negative quantity on the locations. Another one, availability dashboard. If you notice that the numbers, the quantities of available equipment or equipment in different status doesn't match with actual number, what you see in specific item card, then it can give alert that there is some negative balances or errors in document sequence that need to check it and fix it. So, and other three reports, what I mentioned before, so it's unit numbers control, rental units balance control, and UN workflow control reports. That's the main resources to use when you are checking and fixing the negative balances. So let's move further and let's briefly talk about how to fix these negative balances. As I mentioned before, it's a very complex and multi-step process to fix it, because you need to analyze every single situation, what's happening with the documents, what's happening with the equipment movement in RigER, and then to find where is the issue, what causing a negative balance, and fix it. So mostly in most situations, any mismatch or missing documents which gives a rental unit number, movement or status change in RigER can cause an issue and can cause a negative balance in RigER database. So most of the documents are rental ticket, delivery return, and so on, inspection cards, intercompany transfer documents, repair cards, movement notes when equipment is moved from one rig to another rig on client's location, rental break notes, purchase documents, which brings equipment in your inventory, and so on. So the lists can go on and on. So the main report, what I would suggest, I'm always suggesting for the admins, is the UN workflow control. And this report gives you the full history of particular unit number movements, and you can check every single status and document workflow if it's in the sequence, if something is missing there. So this is the main report what I would suggest for users to use when fixing negative balances in RigER.
Okay, thank you very much, Indra. That was very informative, but too detailed. But again, it's essential to understand how to fix these issues once they come up. But let me just talk about a little bit email notifications, because that's another feature, another functionality that is available for RigER admins to set up. Just for those who don't know what the email notifications mean in RigER system, you can, or the system can automatically send emails to a different responsible person on the workflow and notify them about some kind of activity in the system. So for example, on that screen, you can see when we set up email notifications, we can select the document that can trigger the email to be sent by the system. And since we have different statuses for every single document in the system, meaning that every single document can go through multiple stages of the job, and the status will actually notify what the stage of this job it is right now. So you set up the document trigger, then select the status of the document, that once the document is passing this status, the email will be sent. You can also select to whom you will be sending this email notification. It can be doc author, or it can be your client even. So the notification can be sent to the client automatically, or it can be PO manager or PO requester in terms of the purchase documents. It can also be your internal crew members of, if any other user can need to receive these notifications, it will be sent to them, and internal recipients. You also have an ability to attach some kind of information to this email. Either it can be a print form of the document that is sent, or it can be any other attachments that are connected to this document. And also you have a privilege to customize the email subject and to put your specific email subject, and users will receive emails with this subject. And also we have recently added the functions that allow you to send notifications only for client or only to clients. Say you need to send quotes to clients automatically when they are generated, or you need to send invoices once they are generated, posted, and switched to particular status, so they will be automatically sent to the client. Or another option is to send notifications only for a specific department in your company. So for example, people that are assigned to this department will receive these notifications. And also that works as well for the reports in RigER. So you can customize the reports that will be sent automatically based on a specific schedule. So first of all, you select what report will be sent, the format of these reports. So as you can see, different formats are supported by the RigER system. You also select to whom these reports will be sent, and you can set the email header. And the final step is to set the schedule. So just in a simple use case for this kind of functionality, you can send a location report showing where your units are located, at what locations and for what clients. For example, every morning to operations manager or to dispatchers. So they even don't need to log into the system in order to see where your units are located right now. Or another example, the top management of the company can receive revenue reports every morning or some kind of utilization analytics every week, etc. So you have this ability to set up different kind of parameters for the email notifications with reports. And now let me again connect Indra here, because she will be talking about the customization requests and user support capabilities available for admins and for all the users of the system.
Thank you, Gleb. So let me introduce you to the available resources for RigER users in RigER, which will help you with the daily operations with RigER application. So on the support menu or on the home screen, you have the links to access our RigER support portal to submit support tickets. Also, you can see the links and connect to knowledge base to find our articles about different procedures, different features, and different guidances how to use RigER. One more very useful resource is RigER YouTube channel. So you can find all webinar recordings and different tutorials how to use RigER there too. Also here you can find a link to register to our upcoming webinars in RigER that you would get the notifications and connection to the RigER webinar. One more link is to generate and send a support email to us directly to us with your questions, and of course the phone number to call us and talk to us with your questions about the RigER usage. So we can move to the next slide, and here you can see, as I mentioned, we have a knowledge base and YouTube channel. So it's very powerful and resourceful place where to find answers to your questions, how to use RigER, how to use different procedures, how to generate different documents in RigER application. So when you have questions, please go there and check the resources. And if you still can't find some answers or you have some more questions, you can reach out to us all the time. So in the next step here, you can also use the support email. So send the questions to us. So there are two options how to send, actually even three. So you can use a RigER support portal, or you can just directly send an email to us to support@rigER.us. One more option how to send and questions to us is from every document in RigER. There's a support link, and when you click there, you can attach the screenshot, you can add the message, and by clicking send, we will get your questions right away and we can work on it and send you back an answer to your email address. So the next topic what I would like to discuss is the new functionality request in RigER. It's often happens that you may need some new functionality, some new implementations in RigER. So how to submit these requests? So the first step would be just for RigER users to discuss and consider requests internally with the managers. And then managers will submit a request to our support desk with precise requirements, what you need, what should be done, how it should work, and so on. Then the RigER team will consider the request internally and estimate the scope of work and sends for client approval. And the next step would be the manager approves the scope of work if you are ready to go further and implement this developments, changes, functionalities in RigER. And the next step then would be that RigER team delivers the development in the sandbox database for testing. So every client in RigER has a sandbox where they are able to test different functionalities, different procedures in RigER. And then if client approves that everything is done and working correctly, then it pays for the development, and we deploy the changes, the improvement, the development to the production database. So these are the main steps, how the new functionality request comes to us and what the steps takes it to till the implementation, the development is delivered to the client.
And on that note, I wanted to say that if you have any questions, there are ways for us to get in touch. So please do use our website or the phone. We're more than happy to help with you answering any of the questions. And again, a quick intro of the next week's webinar, which will be dedicated to cybersecurity for the Oilfield Cloud. So we're looking forward to seeing you there and sharing some of the insights that we have developed, and as well as answering any questions of you. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to connecting with you again next week.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.